All right, here we go. All right, so whenever you apply for a position, it's very important that you read through what that position is. So you're going to want to know what they're looking for, where the position is located, who you'll be reporting to, what are the characteristics of the jobs or the requirements of the job, the expectations that you're going to have in that job, just so that you are aware of it. And then you can also comment it when you create your resume that you are putting it towards that specific position that you're applying. And what that means is you may be making multiple resumes, which is totally appropriate to do that because you want the job. So you better have that resume looking for the job that you want. It's very important that you're very specific and clear in your resumes. You don't want to put in things that are not necessarily needed for it, and that may cause it to be more of a jumbled mess versus being a very succinct, concise resume. There are different templates out there that you can use. Some are already created, some you can just make on your own based on what you like to do if you're really creative. What you want to do is usually reverse chronological order. So you want to do what is recently that you're doing and then go back. So a lot of times our nursing grads will put down what they've been doing as part of their clinicals as first. So it shows where they've been doing a lot of their recent studies. You don't want to put as your first top things what you were doing right out of high school or your jobs that if you worked, I was a lifeguard. I did not put that at the top of my resume, but I did include it in my resume. But you want to make sure your resume is looking as if you're applying for a nursing job. It's also very important that your section titles are very clear so that the reviewers looking through it, they know exactly as they're looking through it, what each section is referencing to. You want to keep the margins the same, okay? So usually I think it's an inch that you look at, which is important to do. You don't want to be squished all the way to the sides of the paper. So keep those margins and always keep it professional. So nowadays we never really turn in paper, but even in the format that you're going to be sending in, you want it to look nice, neat, and clean. So this is a little bit parts of the resume that you'll be wanting to have. First is always you have your header, which is your name, your title. If you go and get any certificates while you're in school or even after as you're applying, it's important you put those on there too. You want to do a little introduction. It can be just a 1 or 2 sentence, a synopsis. This is where you're really focusing on that job that you're applying for. Why are you applying to the ED? What are you why do you want that job, and what's your expectations for yourself for that job? So that helps you narrow into like that position you're applying for. Have your license or anything that's related to your nursing. Like if you're in the ED, they're going to want to know, do you have your ACLS already? Or is that something that you don't have? Your BLS, which I'm assuming you all have your BLS, but you'll also put that there. Any other certificates that you get, you want to put in there. Then comes your license.
Sorry, do you want us to wait till the end to ask questions or
No, go ahead. Let's
okay, sorry. You mentioned like certificates and such to include. Is it have to be nursing specific? Should it include other things? Like what should and should we not include, I guess?
So if you have certificates that are not medically related, you can still put it in. I just wouldn't put it at the top. I would put it at the bottom of it because it's not going to necessarily be going right for that position, but it doesn't mean that won't help you when you're applying for a job because it can show leadership. It could show other aspects that are characteristics we would want in an applicant, not just the nursing. And Brenda, if you have anything else that you would say about that too.
Oh, yes. I agree to what Colleen said. It is actually BLS, ACLS. Those are the nursing certificates that we usually look for. But if you've had certificates from being a lifeguard, as Colleen used to be before, or something to do with wilderness, we want to know those too, because those certificates really contribute to the overall aspect of what we're looking for in in a nurse or in a person.
Thank you.
What
Yeah,
if
you. Mhm.
what if that certificate or license is expired? Like, for example, I was a Medicare agent a long time ago. I didn't renew it because I got into nursing school. Is that something that I should put or not really?
No, expired certificates, try not to put that in your resume.
Okay,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
thank you.
Just curious, this is Amaya speaking, by the way. For any sort of like certification that we've done throughout our courses in nursing school, like for example, like mandated reporter for like children, or we have to do all these certifications or like certifications through like community health. Are those necessary, or unless we're doing like community health, don't put them?
For me, those are not necessary. If those are part of your nursing school or part of, your course or curriculum, you don't have to include it in your resume.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, I would agree. And I think the only thing is like if you did do the community health and you got that license or something, then you can add that because that's usually a little different. But if you were just certificates that aren't uh, um, or inside your education, then I wouldn't include it. And how I look at it too is the certifications or something that really like national certifications on something, that's what you would want to include. But if there are little things like I took a first aid course, I mean that's something you don't, as part of your curriculum you did, I wouldn't add that, you know. So you want the big heavy stuff to be added. Because you don't want to populate your resume with stuff that isn't going to help you and overburden the resume.
Thank you.
Mhm. And it's also good as you write your own resumes that you have someone who's already a nurse or who's gone through the process overlook your resume too before you send it in. It doesn't hurt. All right. So then you add your education pieces. We all know that you went to nursing school, so it's important that you add that in. Typically, and I'll show you what other students have done, they do put in like where your practicums were, because there are some differences in where you go to do your practicum, and especially if you were looking, say, the ER and you had a practicum in the ER, we're going to want to see that piece. Or oncology, and you did a practicum in the oncology. Those are the things you're going to want to make sure you are adding into the resume. If you had some clinical experience, say you were an EMT or a paramedic, those things you really want to put in there because that is going to make you stand out amongst other applicants. Anything in the medical field that you had clinical experience in that was not related to your education, like previous jobs, those you want to put in. And it's a lot of like looking at your dynamics with public health, things like that we're showing you've had an interest in this for a long time. Sometimes people will put in a short list of their skills and abilities, and I'll show you that. And that's okay, but you're really going to need to show that in your resume by your experiences. So sort of like look how overflowing your resume is and determine if this is needed. And then if you've done any extra sections or like if you've done any publications, your volunteer work, don't leave out your volunteer work. If you've done something, especially like I used to work in the RotaCare clinic as like the triage EMT or whatever, I put down that I did that. So it shows like your interest already in the medical field and you're volunteering in it. It just won't be at the top of your resume. And then any activities too. I don't know. I mean, I didn't put this in and I don't really see a lot of people, but some people I've seen put in their resume like their hobbies. I don't really do that necessarily, but I don't know, Brenda, if you had any comment on that.
We've seen some the resumes that we've reviewed, it really varies from which country you had your schooling. And I know foreign nursing graduates, they do put in their hobbies and they also put in pictures, but mostly for our, nursing graduates from our country, they just stick to most of the things that you've mentioned in your presentation. Yeah.
So this is an example of one. And I think where Brenda was saying, like with pictures, what I have seen, even in my, that I just hired a nurse for our, as RN coordinator in our outpatient side. And in her resume, she had a picture, a professional picture up at the top of her resume where her name was. And so I've been seeing that a lot more, as people putting a picture of them, of their professional picture of them at the top of the resume next to their name. I think that's totally appropriate if you'd like to do that, as long as it's clean and you have the right, you need it to be a professional one. So don't have you hanging out at a bar or anything like that. Make sure it's professional. But it is a nice way that people can see a picture too, of the individual. I don't think it's needed though. It's just that people are doing it. So you can see in this format, they have had created into sections, but they've also separated the page. On the left side, you can see that they have the personal information and with the skills and things that they added on. And then on the right side, they have their license. You can see the statement at the top, their education, and then their experience. It's okay to do it this way. I would limit it to the 3 colors that they have here. You do not want to make it too colorful. It will be distracting and people will not be able to read it. I think you go with mild colors. Don't go with very bright colors. It's also distracting. So kind of the nude colors are a little bit better. And it can make it clean. Like this looks very clean, a resume with clean lines. I don't know anything else you had for Brenda, you would say?
You're right about the bright colors, and also what's good about this resume that you have the font, they're the same. They're not different from all what's highlighted are the important ones, like the bachelor's in nursing, the experience and all those things. But the key thing is to make sure that the important things that you want to show are in your resume, and you don't have to put in additional things that that are not important. On the skills over here, it's very creative on how she did it. I personally, would not really look into that, because I would expect that somebody who is graduating with a bachelor's of science in nursing would definitely know those things. Phlebotomy, not unless you've worked in a lab and you've had a previous experience of drawing blood. I don't expect a new nurse or a new graduate nurse to be really to be an expert in phlebotomy. So those are the things that you need to remind yourself to when you're writing your resume.
The other thing I see on this resume is they have their LinkedIn account. So a lot of people are using LinkedIn account. I have one. I think Brenda, Lynn, do you have one too? Yeah. So if you don't have one, you should create one. I would recommend that. That's where we're all professionals are moving to, and then having that included on your resume. And in your LinkedIn account, you can put a lot more information there too, about things if you like. And it just shows that you're in that professional realm, like that's what you're, showing to the institution is like, I am ready for this job. I'm professional. I have my own LinkedIn account, and I'm showing that I'm interested in this new road that y'all going into the nursing field.
Yeah.
This is another example that you could do. This is probably more what my resume might have looked like a long time ago. I think it looks like this too. I just haven't updated it. I haven't really applied for a job for quite a while. But it gets give you some information. I think I did put my GPA. If you're like a scholar, then you want to put down that you're in a scholar. If you have high GPAs and or the dean's list or whatever it is, you want to highlight that you did that. That shows like you worked really hard in nursing. We all know nursing school is not easy, and to be able to be on the Dean Scholar is really something you should highlight. And then you can see here where they have the related experiences and what they put down for hours. I do see that a lot for nursing, that they'll put down the hours. it's fine. We know you're going to do hours. So, but especially it's nice to know if you did a lot of hours in that field, and you're applying for a job in that specific area.
And to add to that, Colleen, too, regarding the hours that you put in during your clinicals, that's what we really look when we are hiring for new graduate nurses, because we want to make sure that, for example, I'm from the emergency department. We want to look at your capstone project. You know, was it related to patients in the emergency department? How many hours did you put in the ED? All those things are being considered when we look for applicants to interview. As you all know, Stanford, we have the nurse residency program, which is so popular that each cycle or cohort, we get 1,000 of applicants, and they pick 60, depending on the time, they pick 60 applicants to move forward with the program. So just imagine how many resumes our CEPD, which is our education team, look at, and they really want to focus on the areas where you had your clinical experience, and if it's somehow related to the area that you are applying to. So if you are interested in oncology, they will look at your oncology clinical hours and see if how many hours you put in there, and did you do any project regarding or relating to oncology patients.
I have a quick question. The professional, I know you mentioned it in the previous slides, but just I want to make sure, because I was always taught professional summary is kind of like not really necessary, but in the nursing realm, is it a must? Should you have it?
So I know that I still have it, and the applicants that I had just recently, that they still have a professional summary, but I'm not hiring new grads right now, so I don't know if, Brenda, if you feel like that's still needed.
So for new grads, I haven't really seen a lot of the professional summary. It's not as expected of somebody who has years of experience, right? Because for new grad, you are just starting to have your experience. I haven't seen a lot of those. Yes.
So not
So
really.
you don't really have to
Okay.
put in a professional summary.
Thank you.
Now, you do get cover letters, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So the difference with the new grads and also for a nurse with years of experience is that new grads have cover letters, and that's somehow you put in your summary.
I have another question too. So I was wondering, do these like new grad programs use like ATS or like sorting softwares? Like if I formatted my resume like a little differently, will it have any impact, or does the team actually go through every single resume like hand by hand?
So when they actually what's this open up position, let's, for example, a nurse residency position, they have these eligibility requirements that they put in. So the position is open to everybody, and then the program has a sorting mechanism according to eligibility requirements. For example, one of the eligibility requirement would be graduated within 12 months. So if an applicant put in the year of graduation and that's beyond 12 months, the system will automatically reject that application. So, and then what's left would be applicants who meet all those eligibility requirements. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter what you put in your resume, as long as you meet the eligibility requirements, then you'll be able to go through. Once you go through, then we have a team who sorts all these resumes, and then they will really send those resumes to the hiring managers of the different departments that you want to move forward to.
But that was a really good question. Things have changed over time. I mean, at Stanford, we have a whole department that just helps with hiring, um, which is grateful because getting 1,000 applicants, or even for my one position, there were already 100 applicants, and there was no way I can go through that many people by myself. So this is another example of a student resume that someone had submitted that they had used. And then this is a recent, I would say like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, one of my students allowed me, that's not their name, but allowed me to use their resume as an example. So you can see where they put at the top where they put their preceptors. Now this is for a master's. So I know that you guys are BSN, this is a master's, so it's a little different, but you can see how they put their clinical experience. This was a BSN, oh, I'm sorry, a BS to MSN student. So they did not have their BSN. They went from a BS right to an MSN. So you can see it is, their resume was a little longer. I usually keep them around 2 pages, but sometimes you can't. So it's okay to get it a little longer as long as the information is relevant and it's not things that are not going to be supportive of you getting the job and overcrowds the resume. I think you can see on some of his leadership and volunteer experience, he did do a bunch of things with a flu clinic and teaching, which was really important to put in his resume too, because it helps set him apart from other students or nursing students about what he was doing on his time too. All right.
Can I ask a question about the page amount? Traditionally, I was always taught a resume is 1 page, nothing more than that, and then the CV can be multiple pages. So I'm a little confused whether in the nursing realm, is it okay to do multiple pages, or should you focus on just like really concise 1 page, and if they ask for it, to send like a longer version CV?
Go ahead, Brenda, you want to go first?
Okay, yeah. So really, as a hiring manager, I am more interested for a nurse residency program or a new grad program. I'm not expecting 2 pages or 3 pages. I'm just expecting 1 page. Again, you do have the cover letter, and also there is a packet that you guys usually complete. So as a hiring manager, I want 1 page. If you are a nurse with years of experience and you are going for a leadership, I would expect probably 2 pages, because there you will really put in all the accomplishments that you've earned during your tenure as probably a charge nurse or assistant patient care manager. But for a new grad, what I'm looking for would be the highlights of your clinical rotations, and looking at the projects or volunteer hours that you put in. Also looking at your clinical experience while going through school, because most of you are probably working as EMT, as a nursing assistant, as emergency department technician. Those things we wanna know.
The other piece too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Brenda, so when you put in like your education for nursing, we kind of get the gist of, we already know what your education, you don't have to say like I started, IV lines or I gave meds or anything. We know that. There's only if you're doing something exceptional that is outside the typical nursing education that you did for some reason. But otherwise, we kind of already know what you do in nursing school, so you don't have to add it. And also the difference, note for the CV is going to be a lot longer too than a resume. A resume, like we just said, it's just like the nitty gritty about like what you did and the big points. Your CV is going to be where you're at in like, did you give presentations, even small ones in my institution that I do? All of those are going to be, so your CV could be pages long depending on what you've done. in your career. So that's a little difference too. And you should, if you are giving presentations, even now, like out in a realm of like a leadership or stuff, you should start collecting that for your CV and adding it to your CV.
So would it be fair to say only include healthcare related things on your resume? Because, well, I'm in my 40s, so I have a lot of different experience. So would it be wise just not to add that in?
Well, it depends on what it is. So if it's a job, especially if you've done leadership, you would want to have it a little bit at the bottom of it. You wouldn't have that at the top, I would say. And um, it depends. I mean, what are kind of the things would you want to be adding to it?
I mean, I had completely unrelated experience. My first career was a buyer at retail companies, so it's not healthcare related at all. So I would assume that I should probably not put that on, but it was a big chunk of my, period after college.
Well, so Brenda, what do you usually see?
So I usually see some candidates, would put in their previous jobs. Um, and as long as I would say it fits in that one page resume, go ahead and put it in and just put in a description, like the most vital description of what you did as a buyer, because sometimes as a buyer, you deal with customer service, you deal with a lot of people, and those things are important too, when we're looking for candidates, because as you know, for nursing, a lot of our work is customer service related. So those are also important for that.
Thank you.
Kind of to Megan's point, like I'm a little bit older as well. And I noticed in the MSN resume, like it had like leadership and leadership and volunteer experience. Now my previous background is not like anything healthcare related, but it had a lot of leadership involved in that. But it was like 5 years of it. So do I still keep it to that one page? Or can I just add, because there's a lot of different things that I did that was specifically related to like leadership bill or positions.
If you are able to keep it in one page, yes, but if you don't have to, then 2 pages are good, but you don't want to do it longer. You do want to highlight your leadership capabilities, and it will speak so highly when we're looking at candidates, and then we can actually correlate it to the things that you do in nursing school. If you were a leader of presentation during your nursing school, then we can see that, okay, this person applying is a born leader, and you'll see a lot of potentials.
Okay, it wasn't in nursing school. It was military related. So it was all
Yes.
my
So
time in the
anything
military.
that you did,
Okay.
even with military, it just makes you diverse, and it kind of like, gives you an edge, right? And anything that you think will give you an edge to get that position, do it. Leadership capabilities, or leadership related things that you did, volunteer, those are things that will give you an edge.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, Michael, you can also include that in your letter and I would actually say any military leadership or anything, you should definitely include that in your letter.
Okay, yeah, 'cause right now, I have it at 2 pages, and the other second page is mostly stuff. It's all stuff that I did in the military. And I mean, I could take it all off and I can meet the 1 page requirement, but I kind of completely leave all that out. But if I can bring that up in the cover letter, maybe that's sufficient, or I should leave that in the resume, even though it's going to be, I mean, I could try to tailor it down to 1 page. I don't know what you.
Well, I think look at it, do both, do a 1 page and see how it looks, and then compare it to your set 2 pages and see how you feel about it. I mean, because you still want to speak about yourself. You hopefully will get an interview too, you will be able in that interview to you want to highlight those in your interview too. And then you do have a letter that I would say in your letter, you are wanting to highlight why you should be chosen. And what is it that makes you stand out, which would be your military career and in terms of the nursing students too. But I think you should write both and then look at it and see how
Okay,
it feels for you.
thank you.
And then you can have someone look at it too to see what they think using the both of them and make that determination. This was hard to see, but it is, and it is for an individual that has already had some experience of a nursing and applying for a position, but that you can see that they separated the page and had a two-tone. I don't necessarily know if you need to do that. You then decrease the space of how much you can write when you have taken up all this on the side. And you do want to keep this to a one-page letter is usually what I see. You're making it too long, people are not they're gonna be lost, and you really just want to highlight why you're applying for this job and why you should be chosen for this job. I don't know if you want to add anything else too, Brenda, or
No, I think you've mentioned it all. Yes.
so just
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on that previous section, is that where I might include, like, if I'm interested in applying in obtaining CRNA in the future, would that be something I'd include?
So like your future objectives you're talking about?
Yeah, kind of like, say I'm wanting to gain like ICU experience first and then later on apply for CRNA.
You really don't have to, in your resume or in your cover letter. Really for the cover letter is you want to highlight again all the things that you've done and also the reason why you want that job and what can you contribute, right? I mean, I've seen in occasions wherein when applicants put in their future goals, it just means that, okay, they're not going to stay, they're not going to stay with us for the long time. If, for CRNA, what do you need? You want an ICU experience, right? Or sometimes, and or an emergency department experience if you want to be a flight nurse. So you don't want to have the chance for the hiring managers or the team to question your commitment to that unit that you're applying to. So you want to focus on getting that job and showing that you want to stay with them.
Yes, I would say if it looks like you're only going to be there for a very short time, that decreases your chances a little bit because, as we go through the process, especially for new grads, as you know, with new grads, we go through a new grad program. It is a year long. It's a big commitment for both the new grad and for the institution. And the hope is that the new grad will stay with that institution after that for a while. So if it looks like you're just getting your new grad experience and then you're going to be moving on, that doesn't really sit well. Yeah. So we want to, I'm sure any institution would, so we build up on the new grads to come in, we want to cultivate and have them stay with us too. Not to say that it's not important to continue your education, you're applying for a job though, and so keep it to the job. And then over time, you can talk about continuing your education. And I think it's okay to say that you want to continue your education. I just wouldn't give specifics necessarily. Okay. So as we just go through the whole thing, you can use a nursing template for your resume, whatever you feel like fits for you, just go look through it before you send it in, have other people look at it. You can create more than one and look at them 2 examples or how many you want to do, but your resume should be created for that job that you're applying for. So make it so that you closely represent what the position you're applying for and keeping that information about your nursing practicum that was important for you, adding any other information that is important for the position, including like certifications that you may have done outside of it that, as we talked about, would be specific for that position and help it. Let's see what else. and then, work on the cover letter and then
Yes.
start.
Question? Sorry. For the extras, what about awards?
So it depends on what the award is. If it is like in your military career, it would depend on what that was for. I mean, not everyone's going to understand what some of them are.
I do have one that's sort of like healthcare related. It was like a humanitarian disaster relief, like a mission. Can I put that in there? Would that look kind of good?
If you're wanting to work in an emergency department, that would be, the best
Okay.
award or certificate that you want to put there. Because in the emergency department, especially at Stanford, we do have a team who goes to like different countries, to to give aid and everything like that. So definitely.
I'll put that in. Thank you.
All right. Well, so I guess the next steps for you guys are start working on those resumes, looking for the jobs, working on your cover letters. And then I think it's important to find some of your mentors, and if you're professors or your counselors who will look over your finished projects too, to help you. If you have anyone, I think that's also helpful. It gives you guidance. And then I'll open it up for you guys for any questions that you may have. Or more questions.
I have a different question about volunteer work. I currently volunteer with the Red Cross, and I was curious, would it be better to, and I love like volunteering there, so I was considering to pick up more shifts in other aspects. Like I do blood work right now, but they do so many other things like disaster relief and things of that nature. I was debating to do more in the Red Cross, or would it be better to get like a volunteer position in a hospital or something that's more based in like the department that I'm interested in? I'm happy to give my time, but I want to make sure I'm doing it wisely.
Red Cross is actually a wonderful organization that you can volunteer to. If you have the chance to volunteer in a hospital, though sometimes they're more strict with all the guidelines that they want to put in. You have to undergo training and all those things. Sometimes hours are probably more difficult for you to obtain. You can, any volunteer work related to patient service, or healthcare services, it's always nice to have on your resume. Or even volunteering in a humane society, or even volunteering in with your community. Those are always good to highlight in your resume.
And I think the piece would be too, if you're looking at volunteering at a hospital, it's that the hospital that you're looking to also apply to. Because if you're volunteering at that hospital and you're applying to the new grad position too, that may be helpful if they're comparing between two different candidates. It's also helpful if you do work for them and you get, and especially in the department, and you're a volunteer and you get a reference letter from them.
That would be wonderful, right? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Maybe Brenda, you could talk about what about reference letters? Do they need them? What do you look at for them?
So the reference letters, usually if you're applying for a nurse residency program, they will ask you to provide them. I believe it's going to be one from your clinical instructor, one from your clinical instructor when you're doing your clinical hours, one for your clinical instructor with the didactic, and I think another reference letter of your choice. Sometimes they ask their managers, or sometimes they ask like a registered nurse. So it will already be included in your application. If you are a nurse with years of experience, we usually just ask for those references after we've already concluded that we're gonna hire you. So for nurse residents or for new grads, it's different. You provide those reference letters because it's a recommendation from them.
I have a follow-up question to that. I looked at the Stanford website and for letters of oh, actually it's references. So do you guys require letter of recommendations or just references? Because
So it's recommendation when you're doing your nurse residency. I think it is a packet. I'm it is a packet that it's included in the packet for nurse residency program. I believe a cover letter, and then they have a bunch of questions that you have to ask too. I'm not really directly involved with the nurse residency program. That's another team who does that. I am involved more on the hiring for my department. But with my experience, I've seen all those things come to us and we do read those. And then
okay,
if your application is not complete, then that's one of the reasons that they're not going to move forward with your application as well. So
got
make
it.
sure whatever they need in that application packet, you complete it. They're very particular about that.
Okay, so it says to clinical faculty. So I guess our preceptors wouldn't really be clinical faculty. Have you seen any of those come through?
Yes, the
Oh, okay.
preceptors are not. So what they usually do, the preceptors would then during the hiring process, if an applicant gets selected to go to move forward to the manager, because there are always two, I believe 3 levels of interviews for nurse for new grads. There's always the um, education team level that includes our CEPD or the professional development team. And then they go down to manager level and then they go down to the staff level. When you're able to move forward to the manager level, that's when the preceptor recommendation comes in, comes in handy. Because if you've done your clinicals, let's just say in the emergency department, and your preceptor really loves you, then they would write you a recommendation letter and give it to the hiring manager. And those things will be considered when we are moving applicants forward to the staff level and when we are about to decide on who to hire. One of the things too that we look at, and I want you to take advantage of when you are doing your clinical hours in the area that you pick, is to be involved in that department, not to be a part of any committees or anything. Involvement means sometimes you want to put yourself out there. Let's just say um, you want to gain more experience on um, putting a Foley catheter, and you're just not getting that experience with your patients. So you can tell your preceptor and say, I want this experience. Your preceptor then will tell it to all the nurses and say, I have a nursing student with me and wants to gain this experience. Please let me know if you have a patient who needs a Foley, then we can do it for you. So just be very, what I would say, honest, and also don't be embarrassed in saying what you need. Just be upfront and say, I want more experience with IV. So they will bring you to an area where all you do is IV skills and all those things. And always ask questions. And our nurses are usually they are natural in teaching, and they also want to learn from you as well. You will have most likely preceptors in the department who have been there for a long time, but they also want to learn from you things that you are learning now, things that are new, such as evidence-based practice that they're not aware of. Those are the things that you can also mention. And yes, just take advantage of all the clinical hours that you put in. Take time to learn and take time to sometimes teach us as well. We're OGs. That's what we call ourselves, right? The OGs. And then we love to learn from our new staff, and we love to learn from our nursing students as well.
All right. So I just want to be conscious of the time too. And just check in again to see if there's any other questions that you guys may have.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In general, when we write our work experience or volunteer experience, should they be within the last 10 years or can it be a little bit older than that? What do you recommend?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends on what it is. You know, if you're getting quite back 20 years, that's kind of late. That's kind of
Right.
too far. Um, unless it was something significant and you did get a like the Merit Award or something, but you want it to be really relevant to the current time.
Got it. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I have one more question about the cover letter. There was the example you showed. Do you think better to make it short and sweet and just kind of, your little bread and butter, the good, like juicy parts about you, I think I should say? Or should it be more kind of in depth about why you think you're a good candidate and pulling in their mission statement? I've heard many different sides to how to write a cover letter.
Well, I'll let Brenda go too. What I would say is you want to keep it to 1 page. So you don't want it to be too long. If you're trying to highlight on your resume, which is only going to be a small amount, what you really want them to notice about yourself and why this position is fit for you and why you fit for them to be in that position. So you're not going to go into like everything that you've done in your life. You need to really narrow down why is this ready, including the mission statement. I don't think you need to go verbatim going to the mission. They already know what their mission statement is. I would not do that. I would be more of like looking at their mission statement and then saying, okay, these are the things. So I'm going to highlight this, but you don't rewrite the mission statement. You're using too much time of your space. Yeah.
I agree with Colleen. You don't have to write that. And also really what we're looking for in a cover letter is what what can you contribute to the department, that we don't see in the resume.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So I wouldn't go into like every nursing practicum that you've done. All right. Well, you guys are always welcome to send me an email. You have my work email. If something comes up or you have other questions that you felt were kind of weren't asked or wanted clarification, you guys are always welcome to send me. If I don't get to you right back away within like 48 hours, just send it to me again. I do get a lot of emails, but I will want to respond. And I can reach out to, I'm sure Brendan will be able to harass her too if I don't know the answer.
Definitely feel free, Colleen, of course. And I look forward to seeing you in my future interviews for the nurse residency program. Though our emergency department only does once a, we only join the nurse residency program once a year, but I believe our institution does NRP twice a year, I believe spring and fall. And the fall one is just about to start on Monday. So watch out for those announcements. And also one of the things that I can really, really highlight is they have a lot of those webinars, on how to apply for the NRP program. And then, so look out for those announcements. If you haven't had a chance to add Stanford Healthcare Careers in your social media, do so because all the announcements regarding hiring goes through that.
And then work on your LinkedIn accounts.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And thank you, Redolyn, for coming and joining our class. And
purpose.
Giving all your tidbit informations too has been really helpful. You know more about it than I do.
Thanks for inviting me. It's real nice to meet everybody.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye.
you. Really
Thank
appreciate you for
you.
coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much so much.
Thank you.
All right. See you all later.